Hey, Jasmine. How are you doing?
Hey, Patrick, doing great. How are you?
Doing very well. Remind me you are in I'm going to say New York, but I have low confidence in that. New York?
No, I live in Brooklyn. I moved late last year.
Late last year. How do you find it?
Pretty good. I grew up in this area as a kid, so it's kind of nice to be back home. And this is where my husband was born and raised, so it's really great to be immersed back in his culture.
Oh, that's awesome. You say you grew up in Brooklyn, but my understanding is that you grew up most places. Is that?
No, I'll say, yeah, I grew up in this area, meaning the East Coast, living everywhere from New York, New Jersey, Florida, all up and down the coast, honestly.
Um, right. And that's military family, right?
Yeah, that's right. My mom and my dad both served in the U.S. Army, so I've lived not overseas, but in places like Hawaii and California. And yeah, it's been a really great experience being able to see all the different corners of the country and have that merged into my personality and identity.
Yeah. Wow. Was that sort of career something you ever envisioned for yourself?
Definitely. I did an internship at one of those three-letter agencies, and it was a really wild ride, but I think you can be a public servant without having to be in one of those organizations.
Absolutely. That begs the question, what were you dreaming of becoming when you were growing up?
Definitely. As a kid, I always wanted to make robots. Started very, very early on. I would say it wasn't as, excuse me, as altruistic in the beginning. It was mostly about kind of breaking out of the mold and doing something that someone couldn't tell me how to do, something that I could have a little bit of agency around, and um, something that I felt like wasn't just a job that you can just learn how to do in school. I wanted to be a part of building the future.
Building robots, I'm trying to think. We don't need to play the age game, but I'm even just trying to think generationally. Like, were other people around you building robots? Like, where, like, doctor, lawyer, professional, like, those are the careers, and you're like over here building robots. How did that even come into your imagination?
Absolutely. I would say for me, it was sci-fi. It really paints the vision of what a lot of people imagine robots to be. And for me, when I look at TV and things like that, I would always imagine like, wow, I can't wait to go to high school so I can have a locker. You know, it's so much better than having a cubby or a backpack. And so when I looked at this movie called Bicentennial Man, I was like, wow, they live in this future where robots do their laundry and they form all these social emotional bonds with them. And I look around in my life and it goes, that doesn't exist. That is a gap that I can close. And you're right. The fact that I didn't see anyone around me doing it made me even more excited to do it. I would say a real turning point for me was when I was in middle school and my mom took me to a Take Your Daughter to Work day at Lockheed Martin. That's where I first learned the word engineer and then decided I'm going to go to engineering school because I guess that's where you learn how to build things.
Take your daughter to work day at Lockheed Martin. That is fascinating. Do you have any like core memories from that day other than you heard the word engineer? And we don't need to violate any NDAs. You have to sign an NDA when you go to bring your daughter to work day at Lockheed.
I don't think it would have been valid for me because I was 13, but to respect the privacy, I'll say one of the things that we did do was we built a roller coaster out of random office supplies. So, taping folded up paper and straws and everything. We made these marble mazes and they taught us about physics and Rube Goldberg machines and, how one action can influence a whole nother action down the line. And it was just so amazing that we could have an idea, come up with a goal, and then use whatever we had at our disposal to accomplish it. I really enjoyed the creativity that came along with it, but also how it was just technically grounded in how the world works and that these were principles you could master and then apply to anything you wanted to build.
Wow. So then were you a particularly science and math oriented kid, or did this then like sort of instigate further study for you?
Oh, well, I was always a nerd. I really spent a lot of my time watching cartoons and watching PBS shows like Cyber Chase or Bill Nye the Science Guy, The Magic School Bus. All of these things really instilled in me how fun learning about the world, learning about math and science could be. And I was just honestly, Zoom was another one. Zoom had all these experiments in it. And so I was always asking my mom for different ingredients. Even as a kid, when my sisters were getting like basketballs and video games and roller skates, I was getting, microscopes and any kind of build it yourself DIY crafting kits and things like that. So while I didn't know that what I wanted to be was an engineer or a scientist, the fundamental inklings were there, and my parents really kind of affirmed that and nourished that in me.
Yeah, so you had a lot of freedom and almost empowerment to sort of chase that curiosity. It sounds like
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that's great. And so you heard the word engineer at this more, and I think you said 13. At that age, like, did you have? I mean, even to this day, engineer is a loaded term. We think of it probably primarily as software engineers, but you've got civil engineers and electrical
Mhm.
engineers. And did you immediately have a vision of like a tech career, or what did engineer mean to you at that point in time?
Yeah, engineer to me meant builder. It maybe even more meant inventor, right? I wanted a unit of measurement named after me. I would say if I could go back and find my journal, that's probably what I was aspiring to. Like, when is something ever going to be measured in Jasmines? I would look at Lawrencium on the periodic table and be like, okay, I'm coming for you. Uh, yeah, that's really what I had thought of. I didn't know anyone in my family who had, been to or lived in Silicon Valley, or I had no picture in my mind of what it was going to be like, but I knew that if I could join an organization that wanted to solve problems and wanted to physically build things, hopefully robots and automation, that I could be a part of that, find a way to contribute to that mission in whatever way. I did get a chance to experience a wide variety of engineering when I was in high school through a program led by Project Lead the Way. And so I did get to do civil engineering, where we planned out floor plans and made sure that they met building codes, and mechanical engineering, where we, built cars and other contraption using simple machines, and really got a survey of what it was like. But for me, as a kid growing up in the new millennium and the computer age, I really resonated with the programming courses that really broke down complex tasks into simple logic, and really, I would say physical computing is what we call it now, but using sensors like even just a thermometer or a camera, things as simple as that, to make decisions about the world and to actually interact with it. That's where I would say I lit up the most.
Wow. Did you have exposure to all that as part of like standard high school curriculum?
Not standard high school curriculum. I actually had to get up at 5 a.m. and take a separate bus to school so that I could do things like gym and English much earlier before school started, so that during the day, our math and science teachers could work double duty and teach us special courses on foundations of engineering and all those other courses that I mentioned. So I went to school about 2 hours early, and then, took my regular AP curriculum with all the other students, and a special um, survey of courses, particularly on engineering. We took additional exams to be certified, and so I have a high school diploma with an engineering specialization. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is impressive. And so how are you starting to coalesce all of that, the education and the skill building into like, are you focused on, I need to go to this college to learn this major, or are you focused on like, I want to go start a company? Like, are you just loving learning? Like, how are you starting to kind of, are you building towards something? What is the vision here?
Yeah, I mean, at this point in high school, from the engineering side, I'm just having fun. I have no idea about Ivies or Rose scholarships or the best schools for whatever. I didn't end up Googling that until maybe my junior year, after everyone was getting their SATs back. I didn't have in mind like, oh, Harvard expects you to have a blah blah blah, so I better spend these 2 years. My parents went to college. Their education was funded by the government because of their service, but there aren't a lot of other people in my family who went to college at all. So I didn't have a precedent of, I wish I could be like so and so. That exposure to those, like I said, those engineers at Lockheed Martin might have been the first engineers that I personally met in my life. Even during my high school program, they ask you to get an internship at an engineering organization. And I ended up probably more working in IT at the EPA, again, another three-letter org, um, because I saw engineering as like working on or working with computers. It wasn't until I got to college that I recognized like, wow, I actually somehow landed in a really great school for this, being able to Google, I think it was like the US World News Report. It was like top ranking in engineering. was top ranking in African Americans in engineering, and it had a strong program that supported women. So I was like, I want to be and or am all of those things. So this might be a good fit for me. I did meet someone from Georgia Tech at like a career fair or something, and they gave me their card and invited me to take a tour of campus. And during that trip, I brought my Game Boy because I'm a big Pokemon fan, and I was able to meet someone on the trolley and trade Pokemon with them. And it kind of just, I don't know, it just made a connection that this could be a place where I could find people, but it wasn't necessarily about the career. Also, in the high school era, I was probably almost 5 years, 4 to 5 years into running my own company. Uh, Almost completely separate from the type of technical computer driven stuff I wanted to do in engineering and more in the um, service and problem solving space where I was making natural hair and body care products for women with curly hair like me.
That's amazing. So, you got a lot under your belt before you even reach college, it appears. Um, just real quickly before we move on from the company you founded, I'm curious, just sort of what foundation that laid for you from a professional development standpoint, like what skill set that afforded you as you then moved on to college and the career you've built beyond.
Yeah, absolutely storytelling and communicating. There were so many opportunities I had to pitch my business, not just to investors, but to customers at different trade shows, negotiating with buyers like Walmart very early on, really just trying to figure out how do I make this business work? Because my goal, unlike some entrepreneurs, wasn't to make a bunch of money. It was how can I extend the reach and the impact of the thing that I'm creating. In my high school courses, we learned how to keep an engineering notebook, to prepare yourself for patents. You just write down everything you're doing, everything you've tried, how it's failed, the data that you captured. And creating one of those for my business was really helpful for me when I was doing formulations at home and in my basement and going online and searching like, how do I import Manoi oil or jojoba oil from Tahiti or, these different ingredients from around the world because I want the best, because I want the people that I'm caring for to feel like I'm giving them the best that I can in these ingredients. So um, I learned, yeah, I would say how to put together a strong business plan, how to really advocate for the people I want to serve, obviously how to formulate natural products, and just how to be resilient through lots of different trials. It was phenomenal in high school when we got the opportunity to be featured on the Oprah Winfrey Show. That drove uh, thousands and thousands of orders at a time where I was still picking, packing, assembling, and manufacturing at home. But it actually impacted our BDB, Better Business Bureau rating because of the turnaround time of all those orders or mistakes that were made because it was just me and volunteers from my basketball team helping me pack these orders so we could ship them out. We even got yelled at by our HOA because we had to coordinate with DHL and other major shipping agencies to come pick up the dozens of packages so that my mom wouldn't have to try and shove them all in the back of her Honda and drop them off at the post office and things like that. So yeah, we were definitely not in a commercially zoned place. So I knew by the time I went to college that I would need to find a way to outsource this from being in my home to being a scalable business that could have a team to run it while I pursued my career in engineering.
Wow. Sounds like a flourishing business, but also still really rigorously pursuing the engineering pathway. You're clearly very incredibly driven. Like, where does that come? Like, where does that come from? And I personally don't consider myself. I want to say I'm driven, but I'm also kind of like I meander through life, and I just kind of follow the signs and see where I end up. And whenever I come across someone who seems so purpose driven, I'm always curious to understand where does that come from? Did you learn it? Is it a habit you built, or has it just been like you're a curious person and you can't stop yourself?
I think it's the latter. I'm extremely curious, and it's not just that I can't focus and lots of different things get my attention. I think that I live my life in a very heart forward way with a desire to care for and about people. And I just feel like we all have different skills and gifts and talents, and we can apply those for good, whatever that means for you. And so whether it was, hey, I experienced a really bad issue with my hair where it all fell out. And I grew up in a society that told me my only value comes from the way that I welcome the things I could do for people and really trying to be like, can I counter that message? Can I uplift my sisters and brothers and my community? And I went to an organization called the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, which is where I gained my initial business training.
Hmm.
And they told me yes. They told me yes, it's possible. And I believed them. And so, from the business from an early age, I thought I can do this. I've read about all these inventors who changed the world with their one idea. And there's nothing at the time when I was growing up, there weren't these voices telling me, no, you can't do it. That's impossible. That's hard. So maybe the naivety has not worn off. When it comes to, like I said, building the future, that's something that was just instilled in me from so early on. And then it just made sense to me to make these decisions to get closer to my dream. And I know now as a mentor that I'm very fortunate to kind of even have that direction in my life, something I can set up as a North Star. And I really cling to that. And I really do, as a mentor, try and help other people either have enough experiences to discern what that is for you. But, we all have a purpose. And if we don't have a clear purpose, we all still have, good ways that we can apply our skills and talents and interests. It doesn't have to be a big thing that changes the world, but, it helps to have high hopes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now I want to revisit the sort of transformation in college. And first of all, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, do you have a favorite Pokemon?
Oh, probably Charmander. Yeah, definitely my starter Pokemon for sure. And then even growing into Charizard, so opinionated, so moody, so powerful, but just lovable as well.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I have a favorite Pokemon. I think
Everyone likes Pikachu.
no. I think that's because yeah. I think maybe Squirtle if I was forced to choose, but I probably played with all three of them, as I think probably most people did.
Never Bulbasaur. Never. I don't know why it was. Anyway, we'll tangent.
Yeah, that's a different podcast. We can start on the side. Um, but so in college, you went in with this incredible background of entrepreneurship and exposure to engineering. It sounds like you were pursuing some form of engineering degree. Were you on a pathway to be a software developer, or what was your sort of post grad plan, and how did it evolve during your time in university?
Yeah, when I first started at Georgia Tech, I enrolled as a computer engineer, definitely more on the physical components and hardware side, less so much on programming. And it was actually someone that I met in my dorm who took me to the Georgia Tech Robotics and Intelligent Machines lab and really helped me learn more about artificial intelligence and how the way that we program robots really influences what they do rather than just what they're made of. And so within my second semester, I switched my majors because I was like, I don't care about bodies. I already have a company where I care about bodies and what they're made of. I care about brains. I care about actions and interactions and behaviors. And like I said, sensing, understanding, and responding to the world. So I changed my major just then. But yes, I had every intention of being the author of the code in these robots. And it wasn't until I was actually studying abroad. Georgia Tech has a campus in France. I was studying abroad and I got the opportunity to interview at Microsoft. And I was preparing for this software engineering interview, and I think they wanted me to work on Excel, and I was like, no, I don't want to work on Excel. I want to work on a physical device. Do you have any devices teams? And they're like, oh well, maybe Xbox. And they're like, but it's not a coding position. It's a product manager. And then I'm like, what's a product manager? I read this article they had on the Microsoft website, the Zen of PM, and they really frame it as being the CEO of a feature or product area, really championing the perspectives of the users whose problems you're aiming to solve. And I was like, whoa, this feels like the perfect blend of my business background and my compassion for user-focused design and development, as well as my technical skills and really being in the meat to direct the direction of the software being developed. So I landed. I got some Taco Bell because I was in the US again, aced the interview and kicked off my career at Microsoft as a product manager instead of a software engineer. But I will say that, when I came home or came back to campus with the job, a lot of people were unimpressed. They were like, you might as well have caught the M train, which is what we call the management majors at Georgia Tech, the business degree people at Georgia Tech, because it just feels like such a separate path to not be um, writing the code. And so that's something that I definitely struggled with in terms of wanting a higher paying, more respected role. But for me, in my heart of hearts, I knew that I was really leaning into how can I still participate in this industry, but also lean into the strengths that I bring to the table rather than trying to mold myself into um, like a cooler position from other people's perspectives. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say that. I think product management is certainly a field that has evolved so much. I think it went from what you're outlining, which is like this abstract management role, and like you're not really hands on keyboard, and like what do they even do? To now, it's like everyone and their brother wants to become a product manager. Like I don't know if you've kind of also observed the evolution of that role in that same way. Do you still harbor some of those feelings of like, oh man, the engineers, you know, don't respect what I'm doing, or like I'm not in that in crowd anymore, or
No, not now. Not now that I'm more senior, but definitely I joined organizations that did not value product management or were unfamiliar with its role or tried to treat it more like project management or program management, where we're mostly about, dependencies and schedules and things like that. I think, every product manager has probably done whatever it takes, whatever are those odd jobs that are not writing the code to do. Like I've written marketing copy, I've designed UX, like I've done it all. But like I would say in our purest form, like we try to help the team be aligned on what are we building and why are we building it. And I think like my role is to give purpose to the rest of the team, and that is an honor that I don't take lightly, because what they produce from their contributions as well is a fully completed project that I manage and maintain the data to assess whether or not we've effectively delivered impact, not just for the business and the revenue, but for the people that we're aiming to serve. So, in this role, I love being a culture catalyst for caring about the people and using language like serving them and being very data driven, and also being mindful and thoughtful about the capacity and the pressure that we put on people to deliver whatever their role is, whether it's a software engineer or a lawyer or a sales rep. Yeah, it's a really, really great role. So I can understand why it's so highly in demand and sought after, but it's also a high pressure role where you make decisions and you accept a lot of responsibility and accountability for things that might often be out of your control.
yeah, absolutely. And it's very interesting. You mentioned you kind of learned about the existence of the field in an interview, and then took a job. And how did you then learn this skill set? I mean, you already from your background, I think, had a lot of the intrinsic capabilities
Hmm.
that lead a product manager to success. But there's also a certain concrete skill set that comes along with the PM role that you must have had to learn somewhat on the fly. Talk me through a little bit of that development. Did you lean on just learning in the job? Did you have mentors? Did you have formal training that you were able to pursue to augment the on the job training?
Yeah, internships were really helpful for me. So I did do an internship at the CIA and at Microsoft before these full-time roles in the product management space. And I had a mentor in both of those groups. My mentor at Microsoft is still my mentor today. As they've grown and faced new challenges in their career, they definitely brought me along and shared their insights. So shout out to him. Um, but yeah, I felt like when I went to the role, I kind of knew what I was doing, like in terms of achieving like building a product that could achieve goals for someone, listening, adapting to feedback. I think some of the things that I learned were like the exact specific tools that this team wanted to use to do day-to-day operations. So like what task management system, like are we doing stand up or are we doing asynchronous, like not Slack, but like IM or group chat based updates? Like how do we work together as a team is like the biggest thing I learned in these roles. And then some of the artifacts that we produce as a product manager that as an entrepreneur, I wasn't obligated to communicate upwards to anyone because I am as high as it goes. So writing either PRDs or briefs or mocking up user experience, these are things I did as an entrepreneur out of necessity because I didn't or couldn't hire someone to do them. Versus here, there were much clearer roles and lines between what you're responsible for and how you basically take these ideas that you've documented and actually get them manufactured, right? I learned to pitch and persuade and say, hey, if we only have 6 weeks of dev time, here's why we should spend it on my idea, and here's the data to back it up, versus just having the hammer to just be like, this is the next thing the company is producing. So I would say it was a humbling experience to go through that. But when people ask me like, what can I do to prepare to be a product manager, sometimes I do tell them to just go try and start a business, solving a problem that they're facing in their everyday life, so that they know what it takes to validate and rationalize, like, why would I spend effort and time putting into this product, seeing if they can engage with customers to actually understand what's needing, seeing if they can come up with a reasonable business model that not just covers operational costs, but like allows them to grow and scale. Is there interest? Can they fundraise? Because these are all the types of things that, while I don't have to fundraise as a product manager, I do have to be responsible for the financial costs of, what we spend day to day on the features that I want to drive. So it's a great way to get hands-on experience. Without needing any coursework. You kind of just live it. But for those who don't have the, time or financial flexibility to do that, there are lots of courses and mentors out there who can really help steer you day to day.
And did you find, as you were earlier in your career, beginning in this field and trying to sort of develop the skills, build relationships, climb the career ladder, so to speak, like you mentioned BRD, like that is a very specific example, but I'm curious, like, how did you learn to write a great BRD? How did I find like when I look at my own career and those of people I've worked closely with, it's things like that, like executive communication and how to articulate numbers and outcomes in the right way so that you're speaking the language of the people above you. Those are very nuanced things, but they can also be learned. And I'm curious how you went about that. Do you feel like just because you've written business plans as an entrepreneur, you already got it? Or did you have someone whose work you just looked at and said, they did a really good job and I'm just going to find.
Definitely. Definitely. I would say when I take a new job, I always have what I call friendship lunches. These are my real secrets, y'all. I have friendship lunches with whoever I see in positions of power influence at the organization. It could be everything from the CEO or their admin, or, the person working on the biggest, shiniest thing, or the person working in the guts and the weeds and all the stuff that they're like, if this person left, we'd be screwed. Like, these are the people that I want to know who've really entrenched themselves and are known for adding value. Like, those people you can really suss out if you're aware. But yeah, I saw the documents of other people who were principal, director, like way high level above me, and I would not just model myself after them, but I would have conversations with them to figure out, why did you do it this way, right? Because what I don't want is just to be a copycat or mimicker. I want to know the insights of, like, how do I apply that to the appropriate situation when it makes sense. There's also a process that, again, this doesn't happen so much in the startup space, where, similar to designers, the product managers used to have review meetings, right? Or like a design crit, right? Where I can put my document out there and people can tear it to shreds. And they're not tearing it to shreds because they don't believe in me or that this is somehow about my personal review, but they'll say, did you think about this edge case? Did you think about this issue? Or I think it'd be more clear if you phrase it this way. Or, hey, you might want to double check the validity of that metric. And all of these types of notes on improvement really just stuck with me, of like, man, I can be extremely verbose. But that's how I get everything out. But I'll never show you that brain dump spew in the document. I learned to work somewhere else and really kind of sift out the true nuggets, because people's attention span just don't have it. So the last point I'll say is, like, the compassion for where people are coming from when they get to your document is something you have to recognize. Like, the thing that I give to the people who need the high level of detail to implement it is they're going to get one level of document. The people who need to make a strategic decision, I minimize it up to, what are the core facts that you need to contribute with the context that you have, or, how can I be thoughtful about your time and things like that. And so, yeah, sometimes you end up regurgitating the same story in 16 different ways. And so at the heart of it, it's really telling stories and really figuring out what is the purpose of this communication. Actually, I had a class at Georgia Tech called Technical Communications, where they really do teach you what's for an engineer, what's for an analysis, what's for a reviewer, and really understanding what the key points are to highlight. So yeah, mentors, samples, critique, coaching, asking questions.
Technical communication is a class I totally missed, and probably would have benefited from. But I do think, I mean, there's so much you can learn. Like, I think that's the one thing I pick up on the job is like,
Yeah.
you think like, oh man, how do I write this document? How do I do this? And it's just like someone else has done it. Find that person, find their thing, do that thing. And like, no one's ever going to be like, oh, you copied my work. It's more a question of figure out how that organization operates by
Yeah.
finding the artifacts that smarter people have already forged and run.
Yeah, we don't talk about role models a lot, like I didn't have a lot of role models growing up, but I knew that if I saw something that I respected and valued in someone, that I didn't, to your point, I didn't take it as like, oh, that's just the way they are. I just thought like, how did they become that? Because I feel like we're all just born as blank slates and we're influenced by what our parents and our communities pour into us. And so I just want to be a cup that can be open to being poured into in the way that I want to grow. So I'm not shy to reach out to, senior exec here or like, woman that I admire over there because I'm just like, how are you managing parenting and this super stressful job? Or like, hey, how did you go through, buying a house and paying for college? Like I ask all these questions and it shows a bit of my vulnerability that like I don't know, but it also shows my willingness and my growth mindset that I do want to learn. I think we live in an amazing age where there are billions of YouTube videos and online courses and like places online where you can learn for free, if not like at affordable, low prices, where you can learn to do and be anything. Whereas in the past, you did need um, these degrees from these universities or from these institutions that really kind of boxed you as a in or out. You know it or you don't because you learned it in this place. But there's so much flexibility in being self-taught and learning from mentors.
Yeah, uh, couldn't agree more. And I want to pivot further ahead in your career briefly.
Yeah.
Looking at your LinkedIn and your bio is like a veritable bingo card of the best places to work in tech. I think like correct me if I miss any here, but like Microsoft, Facebook, Google X, Nvidia, like it is truly amazing. I'm curious, like, were you just trying to work at all the great companies, or
Oh
you
man.
see that they were doing the work you wanted to be doing? How did you amass that sort of uh, resume?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I have people who reach out to me for mentorship for the sole purpose of trying to work at one of the places I worked in the past. And I just think that is the absolute wrong aspiration to have. Like I said, I have a very clear mission. I want to make robots that help people. And I tried to pursue opportunities that lead me closer to that goal. So when I graduated from college, Google bought all the robotics companies I was the most interested in working with, the ones I was most familiar with from working with other robotics researchers. I knew probably in my third year of doing research that I did not want to be a researcher, that I loved too much about seeing technology in the hands of people in their everyday lives to stay in a lab and work for 10 years innovating in a very niche space. And I'm so thankful for the people who do it, but it just wasn't for me. So I knew that I wanted to get into industry. Luckily, I had that great opportunity at Microsoft, and I said, okay, this is a piece of hardware that is in everyone's home, and that is what I imagine robots will be. So, how do I learn to work on hardware that lives in people's phones? Hardware that has a camera and depth sensor and speech interactions and all these types of natural user interfaces that we will use with robots. How can I learn from that? So, I joined the team and I learned about natural user input and I learned about how to ship a consumer product to 60 million people around the world. And then I learned how to ship in China, which is a crazy thing in and of itself, right? And it was an amazing experience. And I got very comfortable. I got on the Forbes 30 under 30 list in the category of games. And I was like, why am I thriving in the gaming industry? I'm supposed to be a roboticist, right? That wake up call made me go back to school because I learned while I love building all these technical features and things like that, what I really care about is the human-centered design and interaction. So I got my master's degree while working at Microsoft, while running my company, and I switched teams to HoloLens because I wanted to work on a product that didn't have product market fit, that didn't have millions of users just waiting for your next update, but something that was a brand new innovative technology that hadn't quite found its spot and making impact. I wanted to be a part of that 0 to 1 process again. And then my mom got sick. And I was like, I have not lived my dream. I'm working now on mixed reality and doing all these gesture-based interactions and just like doing all these amazing things and working in B2B software, and it's awesome and I love it and my team is gorgeous, but I haven't lived my dream yet. And so I literally left the Pacific Northwest, moved to California where my family was based because I needed to be closer to my family, and applied for any job in robotics I could find, even if it was being the like admin for the team or working in finance or who knows. I just applied for a ton of roles because I wanted to check that box of I work at a robotics company and I know if I could just get in the door of whatever place, I'll find wherever I can make impact. I didn't want a specific title. I didn't care. Um, and then I ended up at SoftBank, which is like very well known in Japan, working on humanoid robots, living the dream. It was great. And then they canceled the project and I needed to find something else to do. And so I ended up joining Meta on like a random outreach from a user working on another consumer electronic product, and that was great. In that role I learned a lot about accessibility and I really got to be a champion of people who are differently abled, and that brought a whole new layer to how I think about building technology that serves everyone. And so, well, was this the ideal AI product that I wanted to be working on? No, but did I find my way no matter where I landed to gain and collect learnings that would influence where I was going? Absolutely. I even left hardware altogether and spent a year working on blood donations during the pandemic, trying to do social impact and save lives. And honestly, it's still one of my most rewarding roles, knowing that 100 million people signed up and said, yes, I will literally give of my physical body to help another human being. It was amazing until Google came knocking and said, hey, would you like to join that robot team? The team of all the companies that we mashed together from almost 10 years ago? And I just said, absolutely, this is what I've been working towards. And I love that they saw in me not just my entrepreneurial background of over a decade and a half at that point, but they also saw that I built the fundamental skills that would apply to commercializing robotics since I've already worked on a bunch of commercialized technology. Again, I got laid off in 2023 because that project also got shut down and turned back into research. And so I definitely wasn't hopping around of my own volition. Life kept happening to me and I kept responding with agency and with choice. I spent some time working in autonomous vehicles, which are really great robotic systems, but are a little too removed from the human robot interaction that I'm passionate about. So I ended up moving to New York and joining Escape, which is truly a hands-on experience. It doesn't get more humans plus robots than, physically trying to improve people's recovery and wellness through the work that I'm doing today. So I found something that's a really good fit. I sold my company to increase my bandwidth so I can focus on growing in this more senior role and building my family. And, I'm here for the foreseeable future, as far as I can tell. I'm not trying to check all the boxes and get, Netflix and Amazon and whoever else is on the top now. That's not how I roll.
Yeah, yeah, I can tell. And you mentioned a couple times in this journey, being laid off. I'm curious, not to fixate on that, but like
Yeah.
a lot of people listening to this have been in similar positions. How did you learn anything about that process of sort of bouncing back and re-entering the job search with the necessary vigor to sort of find that next role? Like what not only like what did you learn? People ask about that sort of abstractly all the time, but I'm more so curious, like concretely, like what helped you bounce back and find that next role, because you seem to have done very well as in your career progression despite one or two setbacks along the way.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't even call them setbacks. I don't know where this term came from, but it's called like failing forward. I have a very high self-esteem, and it's not because of ego, right? It's because I try and then I see the outcome of my actions, and when they aren't what I want them to be, I get advice, I get support, I get wisdom, and I try again, right? I believe that I've done great things in the past and that I can do great things in the future. And so one thing for me about layoffs is like I do not take them personally, especially as a product manager. I understand the economic circumstances that can lead to this being the only way out, or just the leadership mismanagement that can sometimes make it the only option you have to survive. So I don't take it personally. I know that I have a lot of skills and a lot of things to offer. I know that anyone would be lucky to have me on their team, not just for the work that I deliver, but the kind of person I am when I show up in the office. And so I take that with me forward through all these transitions. And because I have a life plan that I iterate on, I know my purpose and intention, it's easy for me to go, okay, the next thing I'm looking for, follows this checklist or fills this box. It isn't a radical, okay, who am I now? My job is not my identity without that. So the last thing I would say that I learned most deeply in my last role leaving Google was to actually grieve uh, the position, right? Not just because of the loss of income, but because of the mission that I felt so passionately about that we were on together and the community that we built. I was there for almost 3 years. The community that we built was so amazing. And it was about how do I maintain and establish those relationships when, coming to the office isn't the thing that truly bonds us. So yeah, that's emotionally how I got through it. But the other thing I'll say tactically for people wherever you are, whether you're in here or far from a layoff, is keeping your LinkedIn fresh and up to date, staying relevant in your industry. Every time I do my performance review or quarterly review or my stand up, like I'm always looking at what do I need to add to my resume to continue to self advocate and self market so that there are opportunities in the queue, even if I'm perfectly happy at my role today.
That reminds me of a quote I actually wrote down from one of the last times we talked, which is you said, if you recall, I can tell you why or how I chose every product I worked on. Uh,
Yeah.
say more about that. Why is that so important to you?
Yeah, it matters to me. And I tell my mentees this as well, right? Sometimes your job gets really hard and it sucks. And your manager stinks and they ask you to do unreasonable things or work weekends or not take vacations. And I just feel like there has to be something beyond your paycheck that is motivating you to show up every day. I think there are a lot of external forces that influence what we value and what we appreciate, but I think we make more powerful decisions for ourselves when we're grounded in our own values. So the first thing I'll tell a mentee who's on the job hunt is to clearly define what do you want and why do you want it? What are your must-haves, should-haves, nice-to-haves for this role? Because you need to be coming at opportunities with a really discerning spirit and not just hungry to take whatever falls in your lap, right? Do you want to work at Amazon or do you really care about, shipping? Like what is your passion that's going to transcend this role? How is taking this role going to set you up for the career that you're building in the future and not just a short-term opportunity that you're capitalizing on because you get to go up a level or up a pay grade or things like that. I think a lot of regret comes from just moving in the moment rather than moving from an informed position, and that's kind of how I want everybody to be thriving through their careers. Maybe it's naive and opportunity or too optimistic to say like you should have the job you want. I understand like some people just like have bills to pay and they need to, be in this season where they're providing. But I think ideally, if you're in a position where you have choice and opportunity, that you should really pursue what you want or take the time to figure out what that is before you take a next step and pivot roles or pivot industries.
You mentioned mentorship a few times now, and I know it's clearly important in your career and something you try to reinvest back into others. There's a lot out there about the importance of mentorship. I'm curious more so what guidance you have for people. You always hear like, "Oh, find a mentor," as if like you walk into a company and they're just like sitting there with name tags on them. Like, how have you had success finding mentors? What guidance would you give to people who are eager for that experience, but just don't necessarily understand uh, socially how to navigate that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of people can be mentors to you. It doesn't have to be this stiff formal relationship like you might have with like your doctor or dentist or therapist. But I think like the number one thing is like again, knowing why you need this person, like what is it that you want from them? Like I said, I'm looking for a mentor to help me right now with organizational leadership. Like, what are the challenges that I don't know about because I've never done this role at this level where I can be gaining experience today in my current role to better prepare me for that? Or what risks or opportunities that can I ask for or take to move me closer to that next step? And so it's easy for me to identify what kind of mentor I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who has the experience that I hope to gain. I can scour LinkedIn. I can look at my current company. I can tell other people what I'm looking for and see if they know someone. I can make a post on the internet and say, hey, share this with someone that you know that can blah, 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 right? We know how to find a pack of sugar or, a missing part for a car. Like it really is like shopping. You just have to know what you're looking for and then find the right marketplace. I do mentor on a platform called Mentor Cruise, which truly is a marketplace of people saying, I'm willing to help. And you can filter and sort by company and skill set and domain and like whatever, but you still have to go to those people and say, I want you to be my mentor because I see that you are X, Y, and Z, or there's this deficit in me that I want to close. And here's my understanding of it. But I'd love your perspective to tell me, is my thinking in alignment with your expertise or what's going on? So I think that's the number one reason why I reject people, because I don't see that intentionality. I see that they want some goal, but they don't see it as a relationship. They see the mentorship as a service of like, this person's going to do something for me and then I'm going to be awesome, or all I want is a referral or an introduction. And that's just like such a transactional way to think about it. Like when I become your mentor, we're co-conspirators to your goal. I'm like accelerant to the fire that you already have lit, right? I'm not going to light your fire and then tell you every turn to take. And that's just not how I do it. Maybe there are coaches who will do it like that. But yeah, know what you want, find some people who has that gap, use your network to try and navigate and find those people. And I think you'll really come to a relationship saying, here's what I'm going to do. And here's what I'd love from you. And even trying to make it a positive, if you can in any way, mutually beneficial relationship where you show up on time and you show up prepared and you make that person proud that they poured into you.
You've spoken to it a little bit already, but I'm curious if in your role as a mentor to others, what common patterns do you see, or even guidance do you have for folks, basically asking you to dish out free mentorship advice here as we wrap up. But like what do you see people trying to break into, or into tech roles or adjacent to tech? What are some of the common patterns you see of things people are getting wrong, or things you find you need to uh, commonly work with people on to help them succeed in that career journey?
For sure. I'll start with entrepreneurs because half of my mentees are entrepreneurs. And within the space of entrepreneurship, it's people who are ready to quit because they have unsustainable operating models as individuals. And on the other side is like people who are excited to launch, but are moving so quickly, they haven't decided, like, they haven't figured out all the ways that their business can fail. They think success means getting the product to market and not, but like we talked about before, validating with the customer and kind of knowing those things. So when it comes to people with those unsustainable lifestyles, we really tear things apart. We talk about creating a life plan and a vision and a goal. We talk about delegation and depending on other people and creating scalable, sustainable, and sometimes automated systems to take the pressure off of them so that they're doing what they're uniquely skilled to do and not just wearing all the hats because that's the lore of what it takes to be a good founder or entrepreneur. When it comes to like preparing your product for launch, like my best mentees will come with questions and concerns and comments, and my worst ones will just be like, and this is the reason why I didn't do that, and all these excuses and justifications, and it can't be helped. Sometimes people just have to experience the failure and then come back to you with the thing that's on fire, and you douse it out and you do a retro and you figure out, well, what are we going to do differently next time if this is still a hill you want to run up. When it comes to product management, a lot of people I work with want to pivot into product manager from adjacent fields. Maybe they're a program manager, maybe they're a software engineer. Lots of software engineers coming over to the dark side. I love that. It's so validating. They're tired of being told what to do, and they really want to learn more about the why we even do this and really have greater control over the direction of the company. So they come to me for that. Or it's people who are trying to figure out how do I level up, or how do I navigate a truly day-to-day challenge. So whether it's an upcoming meeting or a review or a feature they're struggling to analyze, those types of things. So yeah, it's really case by case and it changes every day. I actually just started a Substack where I actually do share with you some of the lessons that I walk my mentees through. But yeah, ultimately, just navigating excuses, navigating non-growth minded, closed minded thinking, just encouraging them and affirming them a lot is what I do, and really trying to figure out what are the systems and tactics and techniques and help that you can ask for to help move yourself forward.
Great. Well, that's a great place, I think, for us to close out. But before we do that, we always like to ask a handful of more like rapid fire questions. I've got 3 to 5 lined up, so I'll hit you with them and see what comes top of mind. All right, first, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, what AI tool do you use the most right now?
Oh, ChatGPT. Oh, actually, it's Replit now.
Okay. All right.
It's Replit.
What skill are you focused on learning right now?
Ooh, human robot interaction. Yeah, principles.
All right. Best advice you've received.
Oh, definitely to run towards something rather than run away from something.
Best advice you've given.
Ooh, wow. The best advice I've given. Probably not to give up.
A classic. Favorite thing to do outside of work to decompress from work.
Oh, writing poetry.
Okay. Writing poetry. Um, I think that's it for my rapid fire questions. I wish I had more because we were really going at a clip, but that
My one question for you is like, why do you do what you do at Udacity?
why do I do what I do at Udacity? Wow. You never expect them to turn the table on you here. I would say twofold. One is so first of all, I believe in what Udacity does. Every company these days touts like we're mission driven, and I've worked at places that are more mission driven and more mission driven, and places that are less mission driven. And I don't know. We try to help people navigate this insane landscape of changing technology and like short shelf life of skills. And while those are buzzwords, they're also practical realities we've all got to deal with in our careers. And so I think what Udacity is trying to do is critical for like a very specific set of roles out there. So I like showing up to work and trying to solve the problem of how do we get more people to commit to building these skills. And then on like my own personal professional level, I work in marketing. I never studied marketing. I learned it sort of on the fly. And I think the diversity of challenges and domains, I like any given day, I'm jumping from like content marketing to SEO to performance marketing and paid ad and like paid ad optimization and website conversion, funnel conversion. And it's just it's insane and the days are long and you're context switching an unhealthy amount. But for me, it's like, okay, this is like it keeps me interested and keeps me learning. And so I think the combination of those two is, I mean, in Udacity like 7 years, which
Wow.
uh in Udacity in startup tech world is a lifetime. In
Mhm.
uh the grand scheme of things is not that much, but it's what's kept me kind of engaged.
Yeah. Well, thanks for letting me be a part of it. As a two-time author, I've absolutely loved my experience of scaling my knowledge, scaling my impact through the platform, and just being able to get feedback from learners about how they're applying the skills, and kind of like when I watch them get jobs after getting through my nano degrees, I just feel like I played a little role in kind of jumpstarting their career. So thanks for what you do.
You played a big role. And as a reminder to myself and all, what courses have you taught?
Ooh, I was an instructor for the AI Product Manager course and the recently launched AI for Business Leaders course.
Oh, those are fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Jasmine. Appreciated talking with you today.